Nobody ever came to the sites with a clear idea of what they were searching for.
Cleopatra's burial place has been the ultimate cold case for centuries, but 2025 changed the game. New DNA analysis from her inner circle has leaked, and it's causing a total meltdown in the history world. They've been hiding the physical reality of her lineage because it destroys the myth. We're talking about a mile-long tunnel and secrets buried 40 feet underground.
A chamber started to open. My own team started to think that maybe I could be right.
The crazy part is, her greatest weapon wasn't her looks, but a chemical mask she used to hide a terrifying medical truth. You won't believe what the scans revealed. Mile-long bedrock tunnel. Nobody ever came to these sites with a clear idea of what they were searching for. We've always been told she was the most beautiful woman in history, but new DNA analysis and forensic reconstruction suggest a terrifying alternative. The last pharaoh might not have been a beauty queen at all. Instead, she may have been a genetic time bomb. The DNA of Cleopatra has finally been analyzed in 2025, and what it revealed is absolutely terrifying. It seems her greatest battle wasn't against the Roman Empire, but against her own biology. But here's the catch. The clues have been hiding in plain sight for 2,000 years. You just have to know where to look. The sands of Egypt held on to one specific secret that baffled historians and treasure hunters for centuries. We're talking about the final resting place of the last pharaoh, Queen Cleopatra. Usually, most experts will tell you she's gone. They say she's buried under the modern streets of Alexandria, lost forever to earthquakes and rising tides. But for the last 20 years, one woman dared to say they were all wrong. That woman is Kathleen Martinez. She's not your typical academic in a tweed jacket. She's a criminal lawyer turned archaeologist from the Dominican Republic. And she didn't approach this like a history lesson. She approached it like a cold case investigation. She treated Cleopatra's disappearance like a crime scene that needed to be deciphered. While everyone was looking left, Martinez looked right. Her profile of the suspect led her 30 miles west of Alexandria to a forgotten crumbling temple called Taposiris Magna. And in 2022, the ground beneath her feet finally revealed a massive anomaly. Martinez and her team smashed through the limestone and found something that simply shouldn't exist. It's a tunnel, but not just any tunnel. This thing is a shocking replica of a legendary design. It's carved through solid bedrock stretching over 4,300 feet. That's nearly a mile long. It's 6 feet high, submerged in mud and water, and it heads straight out toward the Mediterranean Sea. Architects are calling it a geometric miracle. It's an engineering masterpiece that matches the legendary ancient Greek tunnel of Eupalianos. But here's the million-dollar question. Why go to this extreme? Why tunnel 40 feet underground into unstable, dangerous rock? You don't build a mile-long aqueduct for a minor site. This implies massive importance. The discovery of a sunken port off the coast suggests this wasn't just a remote temple. It was a hub, and Martinez believes this tunnel leads to the end of the line. Martinez's theory is terrifyingly simple. Cleopatra wasn't just hiding from death, she was hiding from Rome. She was hiding from the humiliation of being paraded in chains. She wanted to be buried with her lover, Mark Antony. She wanted to be immortalized as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis, and to do that, she needed a tomb that could never ever be defiled. She buried herself where she thought no one would ever look. Kathleen Martinez may have found the front door to that sanctuary. And while we haven't found the queen yet, the evidence we've uncovered points to a dark truth. Wait until you hear what they found inside the mouths of the dead. Deformed boy in archive. Inside the complex, the team made another discovery that sent shivers down their spines. Buried in 16 rock-cut tombs were mummies, but these weren't ordinary burials. When the archaeologists peered into the crumbling faces of the dead, they saw something glittering in the darkness. It was gold. Inside their mouths, where their tongues should have been, were amulets made of gold foil. The ancient Egyptians believed that to survive the afterlife, you had to speak to Osiris, the lord of the underworld. You had to plead your case. A golden tongue gives the power to speak to a god. It grants what's called golden eloquence. But here's the catch. Why are they here? Why at this specific temple? Martinez believes these weren't just random aristocrats. They were Cleopatra's people, her inner circle, her courtiers. They were buried here, equipped with the magic to speak to Osiris, perhaps to announce the arrival of their queen. Think about what that means. We're not just digging through a graveyard, we're standing in a royal reception hall. We're in her necropolis. And if the courtiers are here waiting for their queen, then the door is about to open. Despite Martinez's discovery, she's inches away from the queen's DNA. But while we wait for her to break the final seal, we already have a key to Cleopatra's genetic code. Or at least we thought we did. To see Cleopatra's face, we don't need to wait for the tunnel. We just need to look at the bones of the sisters she eliminated. To understand the dead found at Taposiris Magna, we first have to understand the ruthlessness of the woman they served. History remembers Cleopatra as the seductress, but her family tree was more like a shark tank, and her biggest threat wasn't a Roman general. It was her own little sister, Arsinoe IV. This was a relationship defined by pure toxic ambition. When Cleopatra was exiled, it was Arsinoe who took the throne. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, it was Arsinoe who led the army against him. She was a warrior princess who actually managed to trap Caesar in the palace. But history is written by the victors. Arsinoe was eventually captured, dragged to Rome, and forced to march in chains. The Roman crowds actually wept for her, seeing a teenage girl in shackles. That sympathy saved her life, and she was exiled to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. She thought she was safe. She thought the holy ground would protect her. She was wrong. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra persuaded Mark Antony to do the unthinkable. He sent people to the temple steps. They dragged Arsinoe out and ended her life. It was a scandal that rocked the ancient world. But for us, 2,000 years later, it provided a location. We knew exactly where it happened. For centuries, we thought Arsinoe was lost to history, until the 1900s when archaeologists in Ephesus found a unique tomb known as the Octagon. Inside was a skeleton. The bones belonged to a young person. If their theory was correct, this might just be the remains of Arsinoe IV. The timeline fits, the location fits, the age fits. If this was Arsinoe, we had Cleopatra's genetic code. We could finally answer the questions about her ethnicity, her health, and her lineage. Yeah, about that, the science just took a weird turn. Ancient inbreeding disaster. Scholars looked at those bones and saw a queen's sister. They saw African heritage. They saw the answer to a centuries-old riddle. But recently, modern technology took a second look and the mirror cracked. The breakthrough happened just a short while ago. A team from the University of Vienna finally located the long-lost skull in the university archives. It had been sitting there unnoticed for decades. This was the game changer. They didn't just look at it, they saw through it. Using micro-CT scans, they created a high-resolution digital map of the bone structure. They drilled into the petrous temporal bone. This is the densest part of the skull, a biological safe that preserves DNA even when the rest of the skeleton is turned to dust. In January 2025, the results were published and they revealed a medical horror story. The skeleton isn't Arsinoe. It isn't a 20-year-old woman. It isn't an African princess. The DNA proved the presence of a Y chromosome. The sister of Cleopatra is a boy, specifically an adolescent boy between 11 and 14 years old. And get this, he wasn't just young, he was suffering. The scans revealed severe developmental disorders. His jaw was stunted, his skull was asymmetrical and twisted. The analysis suggests he suffered from something like Treacher-Collins syndrome or severe rickets. This wasn't a healthy royal rival, this was a child with a face that had been misshapen by genetic tragedy. Even more shocking was that his DNA tells us he wasn't from Egypt. His genetic markers trace back to Italy or Sardinia. This opens up a darker, more confusing mystery. We thought we were looking at the victim of a political removal. Instead, we're looking at a tragedy of a different kind. The Octagon turned out to be a heron, a tomb built for a hero. Why was a sickly Italian boy buried in one of the most prestigious tombs in the ancient world? Was he a scapegoat or a sacrifice? Or was he a hidden royal child of Roman and Ptolemaic blood whose existence was so shameful or dangerous he had to be buried with honors but far away from home? Whatever the answer is, it turns out the scientific proof of Cleopatra's lineage in this specific tomb was an illusion. So where does that leave us? We're back to the historical record, and the record tells us Cleopatra was the product of the Ptolemaic dynasty. And if you want to know what she really looked like, you don't need to find her body. You just need to look at the terrifying family tree she climbed to get to the throne. Her family tree didn't branch out, it went in circles. Hidden medical history. The boy in Ephesus might have been a secret, but in Alexandria the genetic nightmare wasn't a secret. It was a royal policy characterized by what's called pedigree collapse. In a normal family tree, the branches expand upward. You have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents. The further back you go, the more ancestors you have. It's a funnel opening up to the world. But Cleopatra's family tree didn't expand. It collapsed in on itself. The Ptolemies were a Greek dynasty ruling Egypt. They wanted to keep their power absolute and their bloodline pure. So they adopted the ancient custom of close kin marriage. They didn't just marry cousins, they married siblings. Historians believe Cleopatra's own parents, Ptolemy XII and Cleopatra V, were likely full siblings. Even her grandparents were most likely uncle and niece or even brother and sister. This family was a closed loop. Geneticists estimate Cleopatra was born with a coefficient of inbreeding estimated at over 45%. To put that in perspective, the child of 2 first cousins has about a 6% coefficient. In many royal dynasties, like the Habsburgs of Spain, this level of inbreeding led to severe deformities and madness. For example, consider Charles II of Spain. Historians call him the Bewitched. He was the end of the Habsburg line. Charles was a medical tragedy. He couldn't speak until he was 4. He couldn't walk until he was 8. His jaw was so deformed his top and bottom teeth couldn't touch. He literally couldn't chew his food. He swallowed everything whole. Cleopatra was nearly double that inbreeding level. So why does this happen? The science comes down to something called homozygosity. Normally, your DNA is a conversation between your mother and father. One covers the flaws of the other. If your mother passes down a recessive gene for a weakness, your father usually passes down a dominant gene for strength to cancel it out. It's a biological safety net. But in Cleopatra's case, there was no conversation. The same genes repeated the same errors over and over. Because her parents were siblings, they carried the exact same genetic flaws. There was no healthy gene to step in and save her. Biologically, she should have been a disaster. Inbreeding like this usually results in the kind of deformities we saw in that boy in Ephesus. But history tells us she was brilliant and spoke 9 languages. Was she a genetic miracle, or have we been missing the signs of her suffering all along? To understand if she was a victim, we have to look at the perpetrators, her ancestors. If you want to know what Cleopatra was fighting against, look at her great-granduncle Ptolemy VIII. This was a direct genetic mirror, and he was a medical catastrophe. They called him Physcon, which translates to potbelly, but that was being polite. Historical records describe him as morbidly obese with limbs that were too weak to support his massive frame. He had to be walked around by supporters. But look closer at the descriptions. It wasn't just fat. Sources mention a swollen neck and prominent bulging eyes. If they open the tomb and find a queen who looked like a genetic tragedy, does it change her legacy? Or does it make her reign even more impressive? What's your theory on the 2025 DNA reveal? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more ancient mysteries.